your attention? Do I have your attention? Do I have your attention? Do I have your attention?
Now that I have your attention, I want to tell you a story of my lived experience as a trans woman who has navigated life in a world full of transphobia. Before I get started, I'd like to give a trigger warning that I'll be talking about violence through transphobia. My name is Ajana Orozco. I'm a 54-year-old Chiricahua Apache, Mexican, Filipino, transgender woman. And through my lived experience, I have experienced homelessness from a transphobic parent, discrimination in various spaces, and violence. I grew up at a time when the word transgender was not used, and there were several words that were being used depending on the space one was occupying. Words such as queen, female impersonator, transsexual for those who were on hormones, and to most, men in drag. So in the late 1980s, as a result of a transphobic mother, I became homeless, living in a car, hooking up with men, just so I could have a safer place to sleep. Due to the elements, I became ill and hospitalized, and my mother allowed me to move back in. So that didn't last too long before I ran away to Chicago. And while in Illinois, I discovered the world of drag pageants and female impersonation. And I competed in Miss Gay Wisconsin US of A, Miss Gay Illinois US of A, and Miss Continental Pageantry Systems. It was within this pageantry system that I obtained my first hormone shot. And being able to access medical care was not easy, because back in the early 1990s, most of us had to resort to black market hormones and illegal silicone injections. And luckily, I didn't receive any of those injections. On the left, you could see me, and the top, I was competing in the Miss Gay Milwaukee, Wisconsin US of A pageant. This was held at Club 219 in Milwaukee, and Club 219 became famous because Jeffrey Dahmer got some of his victims there. And on the right is me winning the Miss Gay Kenosha pageant. And Kenosha became famous because of the shooting during the George Floyd protests. And these are more pictures of me in the pageants. So currently, there's talk about trans people competing in sports in the category that they identify with, right? And so growing up, I was a competitive athlete, and I competed in tennis and volleyball. And I wasn't allowed to compete in women's categories, right? So in order for me to compete, I had to compete in the men's categories, but that was okay. And as I grew older, I had to transition. And untransitioning meant to stop taking female hormones and allow my body to go through many changes that were damaging to my liver and endocrine system. But I wanted to compete at a high level again. So in 2001, I moved to Hawaii so I could train to be an athlete competing at a high level. I competed in many long distance road races, which included the Great Aloha Run, which was 8.15 miles, and 2 Xterra World Championship trail runs, which were 13.2 miles of extreme running. And the Xterra World Championship course takes runners through some of the most diverse and scenic terrain on the planet. I competed in high-level tennis, where I won the Hawaii State Tennis Championship in the 40-year age group. And I also competed in open ocean swims in Hawaii and triathlons. And my last competition was the Malibu Triathlon in 2014. In 2014, when I moved back to California, I started retransitioning and moved in with my mother back in Turlock because my stepfather had passed away. One night when I was out, several guys approached me and tried talking to me, and I soon found myself fighting for my life, and luckily I was able to survive. I don't remember all the details, but I do remember crawling back into my vehicle and driving home. I did not know what to do, what to say, or even if I should call the police. As soon as I got home, I changed my clothes and washed my face as best as I could. And I tried not to show any signs of being a trans woman before going to the hospital out of fear of victim blaming. And this incident ripped the soul and spirit right out of me. And I went to sort of a reclusiveness in society. So I re-transitioned while in community college, and I started living my true authentic self again, which led me to some amazing stages as an activist. When the Trump administration started to create policies that were anti-transgender, I couldn't just sit back and not fight back. So I took to the stage at Mount San Antonio College, and that was the start of my role in trans activism. In 2019, organizers of the Women's March were saying that trans women should not be in the Women's March because they are born male and participated in privilege of being male. And this bothered me because the only privilege that I ever had was being able to stand and pee. So I made a sign and I went to the Women's March, and the Washington Post seen my sign and interviewed me for an article they were writing. And it was a collaborative article where they incorporated several cities into the article. So in the article, I'm the Los Angeles representative and no mention of the organizers or anyone else. So in America, there are people who want to push people like me aside for being Native American, and they want to build a wall against people like me for being Mexican. And the most scariest thing is that there are people who want people like me dead in America for being transgender. So this slide is taken from the Human Rights Campaign on Transgender Violence. And it says since 2013, more than 200 transgender and gender nonconforming individuals have been killed in the United States. I would say there's a lot more because a lot of them go unreported. And like it says, even in the face of this physical danger, hatred, and discrimination, transgender Americans live courageously and overcome unjust barriers in all corners of our country. But until we, as a country, collectively address and dismantle these barriers, transgender people will continue to face higher rates of discrimination, poverty, homelessness, and violence. And while it's tempting and common to pursue largely reactive and temporary solutions, we must address the root causes of this violence to make our community safer for everyone. It is unacceptable that transgender and gender nonconforming people are killed simply because of who we are. And it's not enough to grieve the loss of victims of anti-transgender violence. We must honor their memories with action. So the last line of the Pledge of Allegiance is, with liberty and justice for all. And that is all that I am asking for, is the same rights as freedom as everyone else in the country. That is my home. My name is Ajana Orozco, and I approve this message. Thank you.